Hi, T.O.T. Carlson here. I'm always happy to add new stuff to my movie collection, and especially stuff that's a little more eclectic and off the wall than you would normally expect. And that's why I recently picked this up. I did a trade over at my local Zia Records store and used my store credit to pick this up. This is the Toxic Avenger collection, TA in 4K. These films, of course, put out by Troma, one of the last real independent cinema companies surviving in the world, having done what they've done best for half a century now. I'm going to unbox this release and share my opinions. I'm going to talk a little bit about the movies too. I probably won't get too in-depth on the original movies themselves just because they've been reviewed so many times, but I will throw in my 2 cents nonetheless. Anyway, let's get started. Nice cover art there of Toxie and all his toxic glory. And you can't really tell it from the video, but this is actually embossed, so that feels very nice. If I shine the light on, you can kind of see that a little better. There's the spine, top of the box, and even the spines and the tops of the boxes, those parts are embossed as well. And then on the bottom, we have a brief disclaimer as well as our barcode. Each film gets its own individual plastic case in here. So let's take these out and see what we have inside. One thing I will say, the box is pretty thin and flimsy. I wish this was a little sturdier. And I also wish that included like a booklet with some liner notes or something, because we don't really get anything along those lines here. There's also nothing on the box that talks about special features in the set. The little hype sticker on the shrink wrap actually gives us more information than that. We do get one little bonus item in here, and that is a art card that features the founders of Troma. Here they are then, back in the day, and here they are nowadays. You know, all these decades later, still doing what they do best. We start out with the first film in the series, The Toxic Avenger from 1984. I do like how they used original movie poster art on these. That looks very nice. Each movie features both the movie in 4K and the movie in Blu-ray, with the Blu-rays also being newly remastered, but also featuring the bulk of the bonus features. The 4Ks do have newly recorded intros on them as well. The first film, of course, is the one that sees the creation of Toxie when some mean-spirited people at the gym where he works as a mop boy play a prank and he falls out the window into a vat of toxic waste. He becomes the Toxic Avenger with the Troma particles inside of him, making him go out and fight evil. And of course, it's not long before he's doing that in pretty violent fashion, but a lot of the criminal elements, including a corrupt mayor, quickly take notice, and it's not long before Toxie has to go wage war, even after it seems like the town's going to turn against him. First movie in the series is by far the best one. It only clocks in at about 80 minutes, but it's very briskly paced, absolutely hilarious, violent, over the top. It's everything that this cinema fan could ever want in a movie. Sure, it's in bad taste, but it makes bad taste an art form, and it does it so well. Again, there are many subsequent films in this set, but I don't think they ever managed to top the original. Next up, we have the first of 2 films released in 1989, that being The Toxic Avenger Part 2. And again, we have Blu-ray and 4K, with the Blu-ray housing a remastered version of the film as well, not to mention the bulk of the bonus features. There is a disclaimer on the package. I will read this really briefly. The original negative of The Toxic Avenger Part 2, while complete in terms of all violence and nudity, was missing several short dialogue sequences in the opening third, which had been removed for pacing reasons. Although no film materials for these sequences can be located in order to present the most complete version possible, these short segments were inserted from the highest quality digital master. This time around, Toxie goes to Japan to search for his long-lost father. What he doesn't know is it's actually a plot by the villainous organization Apocalypse Incorporated to come in and take over Tromaville and to attempt to take Toxie's powers away so he'll be more easily defeated. I mean, this movie basically takes everything about the first movie and dials it up a notch, going about half an hour longer, and of course featuring Toxie's trip to Japan. The Japan scenes are some of my absolute favorites in the Toxic Avenger saga, but at 110 minutes, it's way too long, and it tries to beat certain points a little too hard. The over-the-top violence and nudity, of course, are still here, and of course, I mean, it's a Troma film, so you pretty much get what you'd expect. The biggest problem with the sequels to the Toxic Avenger is the pacing. They just all go on much longer than they need to. The first film was only 80 minutes, but the other movies all clock in around 100 and 110 minutes, and they just do kind of run out of steam. Despite that, they're certainly still enjoyable. Next up, we have The Toxic Avenger Part 3, released later in 1989. Again, we get both formats in here, with the Blu-ray housing most of the bonus features. This time around, Apocalypse Inc. is back, but Toxie goes to work for them so he can get enough money so that his blind girlfriend can get an operation so that she can see again. But will Toxie see the errors of his way as he goes about destroying Tromaville with Apocalypse Inc., or will he forever remain an 80s yuppie stereotype? This movie is problematic for the simple reason that it was shot at the same time as Part 2. Originally, they were intended to be one big long movie, but that wouldn't have been practical. And so the footage was re-edited to make this movie. It's clearly supposed to be a sequel to the previous movie, but there's also a lot of reused footage, reused plot elements, and it just feels very messy as a result. That said, there are things I like about this movie, including finding ways to bring back Melvin before he got turned into the Toxic Avenger, and even a battle against Satan himself in the latter half of the film done in a very over-the-top and entertaining fashion. That brings us to the last film featured in the set, Citizen Toxie, The Toxic Avenger Part 4. And as usual, we get a 4K of the movie with the new introduction, and then we get the bulk of the bonus features on the Blu-ray that also includes the film. Part 4 ignores parts 2 and 3, serving as sort of a loose reboot sequel to the original film, with Troma doing this long before other studios tried doing it with multi-million-dollar franchises. This time around, following a school shooting and an attack by a group who's literally called the Diaper Gang, an explosion sends Toxie into an alternate universe in which everything he knows is completely flipped around upside down. Meanwhile, while he's sent to that other universe, from that universe comes his counterpart in the other universe, the Noxious Offender, who is evil and goes about setting chaos loose in Tromaville. Will Toxie get back to his own place and be able to undo the damage done by his evil doppelganger? This time around, again, this serves as a sequel to the original film and ignores the sequels, but it's an interesting case because we do get a lot of celebrity cameos here as well, including Lemmy from Motorhead, legendary porn star Ron Jeremy, and even some spoken word dialogue by Stan Lee. So it is certainly a labor of love, and it really does go back to what we've loved about these movies. Again, like the other sequels, it is a little too long and does drag out its premise a little too much, but it is a solid film for what it is, and of course, you pretty much know what you're getting if you're a fan of these movies, and this certainly delivers in that category several times over. So at large, I certainly enjoy these films. However, I do have to give the disclaimer. If you are easily offended, squeamish, easily grossed out, these are not movies for you. These movies are not for the critics. They feature gratuitous sex, violence, nudity, racial stereotypes, other material that's in completely bad and horrid taste, some of which is even more shocking in this day and age of wokeness and political correctness. I have a feeling if any of those kinds of people watch these films, they'd be traumatized for life. That said, I love a good, schlocky, exploitative, violent, gratuitous movie, and the Toxic Avenger movies certainly deliver in that department, even if the sequels never quite lived up to the original. These movies were all newly restored for this 4K release, and for the most part, they actually look very solid, pretty sharp and colorful while retaining the original film grain. The original film is the roughest looking one of the bunch because there are some scenes with color fluctuations and print damage. The sequels look substantially better because I would assume they had larger budgets. Some of the effects scenes, obviously due to the products of their era and so forth, look weaker than the rest of the film. But for the most part, fans of the movies will be impressed with what they get here. As far as bonus features go, there are commentary tracks and introductions on the 4K discs, but there are several other featurettes that are included on the Blu-ray discs, including interviews, featurettes from Troma, interviews with cast and crew. Most of these are just shorter pieces, some of which are just as funny as the films themselves, but there are some longer interviews and pieces as well that are certainly worth your time if you're a fan of the franchise. Like I said, I do wish that included a booklet and some liner notes with this set, but I do have to say I'm glad to see that this is a pretty comprehensive set for the most part, and I think fans of the franchise will be happy with what they find here. So if you're a fan of the Toxic Avenger, or you're just one of those kinds of people who's a fan of low-budget, exploitative cinema that's deliberately made over the top and in bad taste, I think you'll be right at home with this collection. And these 4K transfers look absolutely fantastic. So fans of the movie, or even someone who wants to check out the movies for the first time, I don't think you'll be disappointed with what you see here. One brief disclaimer before I end this video. I have read reports online of these discs glitching and freezing up in some people's players. I own a Panasonic 820 player, and the firmware is up to date, and I had absolutely no problem playing these discs. So my advice to you would be, if this is happening, maybe make sure your firmware is up to date. Again, my Panasonic 820 up to date had no problems playing the movies. So again, that's something to keep in mind. If you do buy these, make sure your firmware on your 4K player is up to date. Are you a fan of the Toxic Avenger film series? Do you think this is the greatest achievement of Troma? What do you think the best movie in the series is? Who's your favorite character? Comment down below and let me know what you think. Also, remember to subscribe to this channel for more content. I'm always posting new videos. And make sure you give this one a like if you found it helpful. I'm Taylor T. Carlson. I'll see you next time.